So, we're still on the topic of cultural identity. Actually, we're just getting started, to be honest. But as a follow-up to the intro video, we're going to be diving a bit deeper because I feel like you can't really appreciate cultural identity without hearing from people about their experiences as they navigate life. So, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about all of this with Akubeze, who is a Lagos-based Nigerian YouTuber. She makes videos about lifestyle, travel, and empowerment. So, check out her channel if you'd like. And Akubeze is going to be the first of many conversations we will be having about cultural identity. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one.
My full name is Akubeze. I think that should kind of give you an indication, but actually it might not, because people think I'm Igbo, but I'm not. I'm Ikwere, so that's a whole other story on its own. Understanding how the Ikwere people took on their own identity in the South, because basically we're from the South River State, Nigeria, from Port Harcourt, actually, the central city of River State, Nigeria. I grew up in Nigeria. My mom is actually mixed race. My mom is half British, half Rivers, but she's Rivers Igbo. My dad is full Ikwere. So I'm just like a mix, but I really just tend to say I'm a Nigerian, unless people start probing like, oh, so why you light skin or this or that, then I'll explain that, okay, I'm mixed. But yeah, I'm a Nigerian. I identify as a Nigerian and Ikwere.
And were you born in Nigeria?
Yes, I was born in Nigeria. I was born in Port Harcourt. Raised in Port Harcourt. I eventually went to do like my A-levels in England, uni in England, and then I moved back after my master's. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, very interesting. See, I was actually one of those people. I assumed when you said Okocha, I was like, oh, okay, she's Igbo definitely. And now that you explained, it's like, oh wow, not necessarily. Because like I'm from Delta, and there are Okochas from Delta, so I just assume, oh yeah, she must.
Oh yeah. The JJ himself, the main Okocha is from Delta, yeah.
Exactly. Oh no, that's
true.
So, in growing up, was there like a strong, because for example, like being Nigerian, it's a country and a culture that's very heavily centered on culture, and there's almost like an identity you're expected to carry with you for like your life. Once you're raised like you should be that. So growing up for you, did you feel like it was were there certain cultural expectations you feel were placed on you that your family expected you to like carry on?
That's a tricky one, because I wouldn't say that there were necessarily cultural expectations. As I said, my mom is mixed, so I think because of that, we're not really a very like Ikwere household. So, I feel like I just grew up growing up. But when I did realize that, culture was a thing, and, I had a different identity, was when I came to secondary school for Lagos. And that's when I now started hearing, oh, be careful with Yoruba people. You can't trust them. Like, that's when I now even start understanding that, oh, I'm different. There's a different expectation of me as an Ikwere person. I'm expected to even be closer to Igbo people naturally, just because, we're meant to have been in the same struggle during the war. I feel like Northerners was not even something that ever crossed my mind until I got to Abuja. Like the Northern culture was just, when I was younger, people would say, are you Fulani because of your hair? That was like the most I knew about the North, but I didn't also even understand the cultural differences, especially with religion and all of that. So I wouldn't say I necessarily felt any cultural expectation. But then again, in River State, Ikwere is majority tribe. So I think that's also played a role, because we are essentially the leaders in our society there. So I never felt, maybe that's why I never felt like I had any kind of catching up to do or any kind of appealing to do to anybody else, because I was born into the majority type of thing. So,
I think growing up for me personally, I've realized, or I think back to times where, because I lived in Lagos like my whole life basically, and it's like you think back to people saying, oh, like if you're Igbo, oh yeah, be careful of Yoruba people, they're like this. Or when people say Igbo people are like, they just want to like scam you, or do everything is business related for it. Those kinds of comments that people make, that they're kind of unfair. Yeah, there may be, to every stereotype there's like a small element of truth to it, but still I think the way people use those things a lot of times, it's very it's unfortunate the way we use them, because in my opinion, it just contributes to like division and stuff, because people use it as a way of, oh, stay away from this group, or you're your own, stay here, kind of thing. And like, I feel like, it shouldn't be the case.
Even you just saying that just reminded me of something. When I first came to Lagos, like, they used to make fun of me for having a Port Harcourt accent, and I didn't even know what that was. I feel like it's something that I just kind of, I don't know how I eventually got over it, but it was something I was insecure about for the longest time. Like, I have a Port Harcourt accent. Like, what is a Port Harcourt accent? Like, so, I feel like my childhood, I was so oblivious. And then when I came to Lagos, it was just like, hold up, there's so much more, going on than, yeah.
Did you feel like when you went to England, was there any part of you that felt that your cultural identity had changed or shifted in any way because you are now in that new environment?
Definitely. The biggest thing for me was the religious part of it. Just, my morals in a way. I feel like, but I think that's also kind of linked to religion as well, isn't it? Because that was the biggest difference I found. Like, I felt like I was a bit frigid when I got to England because I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I wasn't having sex. Like, I was facing my Bible, facing my books. Like, what my parents taught me was what I was doing. Whereas I was now like hanging out with friends that are atheists, or, if they're having an argument with their mom, it's like a proper conversation. Everybody's dialoguing. It's not just what mommy says that goes, So there was definitely a shock for me just realizing that, not everybody is living according to these strict, like, moral guidelines. People are just deciding to do what they want for themselves over here at whatever age, because there were even people younger than me that maybe they would have boyfriends sleeping over, and I'm like, what? Like, your mom lets your boyfriend over? Like, we would go for house parties and the parents would even provide rooms for us to sleep in, and I'm like, what? Like, how? Like, so yeah, I think it was more of a moral and religious thing, not necessarily because it became to like food. I could eat the food. I had been seeing the food in Nigeria, but then maybe that's colonization that also made it that things that they were doing there I already knew, type of thing. Yeah,
that's true. Definitely, like when you mention morals and all of that stuff, it's like a 180-degree like turn, because all the norms that you've been raised with or you're told to be like, this is this, and everything is black and white. But then I think when you go to certain countries, it's like, oh no, it's not black and white, there's a lot of gray in there. So I think almost the way you view the world changes most of the time, and in the process the way you view yourself sometimes also changes. And that's why I feel like a lot of, like, I hear a lot of parents saying like, oh, you children that are going abroad, blah blah blah, you always come back different, like you almost feel like you're not even Nigerian anymore, something like that. Because it's just that people go and then you just realize that I think, and this is my opinion, there's more to life than the one way that you've been raised with. And I feel like it's just like a human thing, as people move around, you learn different things and stuff. So it's like, for me at least, in thinking of my experience and like, friends and stuff, I think people's parts of their identities begin to shift a bit as they move into different environments. And I think that's normal. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as, values would be the main thing. But everybody's value system is, it's different. Like, we can't speak for other people, but that's a whole different conversation, because like when you talk values, there's like so many different angles you can go.
But you know what, something you just said actually made me think of another part that I didn't talk about, because I think the biggest thing that my mom especially goes on about me is like, oh, this is my whole feminist belief. Like, she feels like it's really my time in England that put it in my mind. And I won't lie, it is, because I got there and my headmistress is the breadwinner of her house. I can see her husband coming to school with their kids, and it's normal there. Like, and I'm like, what? It's not the man that's running things in this house. Like, I feel like my whole perspective just changed about women's rights and people's rights, and even children's rights. That's why I was telling you that over there, a child has the right to talk back and dialogue. Like, you don't just tell me something. That's where back then we were making jokes when we travel for someone, like, I'll call police so if your parents want to beat you, because like over there, you know that if you call police, they're not taking it lightly. If you try, police will even join your parents to beat you here. Like, so Yeah, definitely. Like,
Yeah.
there's a huge difference. But I don't think it was a bad thing, Sha. I mean, I
Yeah.
appreciate the exposure I got. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you pick and choose, like whatever is useful to you, whatever you closely align with, especially, when you get into issues of like rights and stuff, then it's a topic that everybody they have the right to feel the way they feel about issues and whether or not they want to be part of that conversation. So, like you say, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but people will always see it in different ways at least, and then that is like
Yeah.
that's the clash of cultural identity that I find, that sometimes when you're away for a while and then you come back, everybody, they're like, what is this, like since when did this one start, or what kind of perspective, they'll say, oh, it's all these Western things, and I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe if you don't agree with certain parts of like Western like life, it doesn't mean everything about it is wrong just because it's different.
Yeah.
Like the differences are okay, and I think we should realize that. Do you think that culture and identity are always linked? Like, are they always one and the same, or are they different?
I think culture is linked to identity, but identity is bigger than culture. I think, your culture makes up your identity, but your identity is not just your culture. I guess I'm repeating myself, Sha, but that's how I kind of think about it, because I know that my culture has taught me some certain things about, maybe, okay, let's say according to my culture, a woman is not supposed to inherit property, but that doesn't define or make me identify myself as less than my brothers. It makes me even want to strive for more, to even own my own property, so that I will not have to look for anybody to inherit from, type of thing. So I think culture definitely makes up your identity, but it doesn't define your identity.
It's very easy to
Yeah.
kind of like glue them together, especially when you're talking religion in like a very conservative culture like ours. It's like, and I think that's where like another like part of tension, where if you decide that you don't want to be, let me just put it this way, if you decide that you don't want to associate with a specific part of your cultural identity that is expected of you, like say if you're raised Christian, for example, and you decide, this is not for me anymore, it would create tension between the family and you yourself.
Yeah.
And so those are issues that I feel like a lot of people are trying to navigate that space in finding themselves, because so much of who they are as people is tied to like community and what everybody else expects of them. So that's where people are really like, I think, struggling to kind of separate themselves from the identity and just find themselves. I think it's a journey that everybody should go through like individually. That's just my opinion.
And sometimes I also wonder if it's a journey that will ever end, because I find that I'm still in the middle sometimes, like, okay, we talk about women's rights, and we talk about the sexual empowerment of women. That means I should be able to have sex with whoever I want. I should be able to do whatever I want with my body. But then the me that has been taught like Christian values of modesty and, saving yourself, I'm torn, because I'm like, okay, I understand the logical behind this empowerment that you are asking for, but I don't know, there's still a part of me that is like, in the middle. So I feel like it's a constant journey, it's a constant like navigation of finding which side do you really fall on, Yeah.
What do you think about the role that media or just globalization in general like plays when it comes to cultural identity?
You are what you consume, and I feel like media is a big part of what we consume, especially now that social media has erupted. I feel like, we use over here in Nigeria, I don't think it actually hit me until I got to adulthood, that we use American slangs, and we use we dress like them, that's, I feel like it's when I got back, I started making a conscious effort to wear Ankara, because I'm like, this is my own material. Why am I wearing English wear? Why are we doing white wedding? Like, so, I feel like the media definitely plays a role, because it's what we're hearing, it's what's forming our thoughts, it's what, like, culture, part of culture is like, the ideologies now, and how do our ideologies form? It's by what we read, what we watch, what we just consume. So I feel like it plays a huge role, and that is even also part of the influence for me with my own YouTube channel, trying to also show people what an African woman is like these days. Like, so I feel like it definitely plays a huge role, and it's something that I'm trying to also tap into and also use for my own advantage.
It's crazy because like some people you don't even have to like travel out of the country to even start doing those things. Like just from TV or social media or just talking to people, it will just begin to happen, and you're just like, oh wow.
That's true. I remember, back in secondary school, obviously social media wasn't really popping back then, but like music videos, like my friends and I would literally study music videos to know what to wear, like what to say, what lip gloss is popping, like what dance is the current hot dance, so definitely you can't separate media and your cultural identity, whether it's traditional forms of media back then or even social media now. Like it's so impactful. I think it's even probably more impactful than even your surroundings in a way, because as I said, somebody like me, I grew up in Port Harcourt, I grew up in my village, so you would think that I should literally be like a very traditional Ikwere girl. But here I am, I can't speak my language, but I can read a beautiful poem for you in the most articulate terms, and that's because what was I consuming at the time? If I wasn't hanging out in my village now, I was watching TV, I was talking to people on the internet. So yeah, I feel like it's definitely a huge factor.
A lot of what you said I can relate to as well, because there are just certain things that are bound to clash with like traditional methods of doing things, and like I guess the more new age way of thinking and doing things. So it's like cultural identity is one of those conversations that every day I feel like it's just being highlighted more and more as people navigate through the whole thing. So yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much again.
No problems. Bye.